மணிப்பூரில் கடந்த ஓராண்டுக்கு மேலாக மைத்தி இனத்திற்கும் குக்கி இனத்திற்குமான அந்த முரண்பாடும் குக்கி மக்களுக்கு எதிரான வன்முறையும் தொடர்ந்து கொண்டிருக்கிறது. இந்நிலையில் குக்கி மக்கள் சார்பாக குக்கி தேசிய அமைப்பின் செய்தி தொடர்பாளர் டாக்டர் செயிலின் ஹவுகிப் அவர்கள் இப்போது இருக்கக்கூடிய நிலைமை பற்றியும் அவர்களுடைய கோரிக்கைகள் பற்றியும் சிக்கலுக்கான வரலாற்று காரணங்கள் பற்றியும் அவருடைய நீண்டகால கோரிக்கைகள் பற்றியும் பேசுவதற்காக இந்த உரையாடலில் கலந்து கொள்கிறார். அவரை மக்கள் முன்னணி ஊடகம் சார்பாக வரவேற்கிறோம். On behalf of People's Front, we welcome Dr. Seilen Haokip, spokesperson of Kuki National Organization. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Thank you.
In this interview, we would like to have a glimpse on what is currently happening in Manipur and the investigation status of various investigations, yes, and your views on the reason behind the conflict and all those things. So yes, let's start with the first question. You briefly explain on the current situation in Manipur, because this conflict has been going on for more than a year. Still, it is not settling out. So, what is the current situation in Manipur with the conflict between Meiteis and Kuki?
As we are already familiar with the background, we will not go into that. But the fact that the conflict is not settled, which means it is continuing, although there is no incidents of violence from time to time, the conflict, as you call it, remains. So you must be aware that the Union Home Minister has been very serious about there being peace on ground before the conflict can be resolved, and a political settlement with respect to our demands can be addressed. Now, we all agree that peace does not mean absence of violence, or absence of violence does not mean peace. So currently, the incidence of violence is not there for the last maybe 2 weeks or so after the Ziribam incident. We have not heard of any conflict reports anywhere in our area. When I say in our area, it means normally the conflict arises when the valley-based militants or radicals cross the buffer zone, which is manned by the central forces, to attack us. And as they are a majority, and of course, we always say they are state-sponsored because there's every evidence of that, we are a minority, and our entire capacity to go and attack the valley is pretty much minimal. And it is also a fact that we have adopted with respect to our ideological position in terms of the conflict. I have to elaborate that slightly because it's slightly, well, when you say ideological, it is also slightly philosophical. The normal convention understanding is that offense is the best form of defense. In our case, it's the opposite. Defense is the best form of offense. And the reason that is so is because the government has taken action in terms of keeping the peace on ground, meaning not permitting either side to attack one another. And the buffer zone is there where the central forces are effectively present. So because of that, we can take that defensive position, which is the best form of offense. Because if we go on the offensive, we can do that in places because the border is very long and porous, and the central forces cannot man every nook and corner of the border. But we choose not to do that because we believe that since our demands are within the Constitution, we must restrain ourselves from being in the offensive, and so that our demands, which is constitutional, is consistent with our actions. So to answer your question in a nutshell, with that background, slightly elaborated explanation, currently there is no incidence of violence for the last 2 to 3 weeks since the Ziribam incidents. So that would answer your question.
For the last 1 year, the conflict is going on, and the investigation part, a lot of incidents and very few incidents, in fact, have come up outside. Now, Supreme Court is also following up the investigation part, and there is a worrying fact that out of 3,000 cases, only 192 cases have been under the investigation stage. Only 6% is progress there.
Yes.
So, what is the reason behind this very slow investigation process which is going on now? In fact, Supreme Court has asked for a report on January 20. But when we see from outside, why there is very slow investigation?
Yes, I would not know exactly why it is so slow, except as a layperson's understanding. You know, India is a big country, and generally judicial matters, cases take very long wherever, especially in our country. And one can attribute that only to the fact that there must be a mountain of cases that the courts have to deal with. Having said that, given that our case is such, which is almost 2 years old and within the country, and the place has been so completely instabilized or destabilized, one would expect that the Supreme Court would take more, action, proactive decisions to expedite the process of investigation, because that will help in settling the conflict. Now, I would be very sorry if the conflict is going to only come down commensurate to the pace of the Supreme Court or the court activities. Then I think we're going to be looking at decades and decades of this matter not being resolved. But that is purely, in a sense, a little exaggerated, because our settlement will not be dependent on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is not going to decide on whether they can give the political demand or not. But it will help in sorting out the facts on ground, which will enable the government to expedite its decision. So, having said that, we know that the government will not depend entirely on the coverings or the pace of the court proceedings, because the government has facts by which they can go by in the political sense. So I hope the two will not be linked to a point that the conflict is not resolved until the court proceedings have reached a certain level. But I think I've answered you in a very long about way. But the whole idea of justice is to also establish the truth and to help settle issues outstanding, whether it's political or not. So I agree that the pace is slow. The Supreme Court has given the date of the 20th this time, as you mentioned, which is encouraging. But we also hope that the government will be more proactive, not only the courts.
There is a general criticism that the Manipur government is complicit with the violence against the Kuki population and violence carried by Meiteis community in Manipur. So there is also demand coming from people of Manipur demanding the Chief Minister Biren Singh to resign from his post, and sometimes there is demand towards Home Minister Amit Shah also. So in what sense that you are accusing that the state government, BJP-led government, is complicit with these crimes, and in fact, Biren Singh is complicit with this crime? Can you brief us?
Yes, the fact that this present leadership, the chief minister, is complicit is an understatement. He is not only complicit, he is the architect of the whole problem. We have not had this kind of problems in the past, when leaderships were more magnanimous and more wise in their political decisions. The present leadership has shown his communal color from the beginning, and the evidence of that is when on the 3rd of May 2023, the problem erupted When I say erupted, it means there were already things happening on ground for the past couple of years with respect to, forest issues and evacuations and what kinds of things, which are not in the general sense applied to the whole state, but is targeted to the Kuki community. Now, that we will not go into, but on the 3rd of May, when the problems erupted in Imphal, subsequent days, the attacks on the Kukis, the vulnerable Kukis in the majority areas of Imphal, the police commandos, the state forces were leading the Meitei militants in attacking the civilians, innocent civilians. Not only that, in the weeks and months to come, by that time, the government had placed central forces along the buffer zone. The buffer zone meaning the district boundaries where the valley is separated from the hills. So even there, the state forces used to lead the Meitei mob and radicals with their weapons, with their Caspers and bulletproof vehicles, penetrate, and then wherever they were able to penetrate, they would go and burn the Kuki villages and fire on the civilians. And the central forces were not able to always cover all those areas. So the fact that the state forces exercise their state powers against a minority people in the same state, citizens of India, how can that be unless the chief minister allowed it? So the complicity of the state government with the leadership in place now is crystal clear. There are video clips to prove that. There are statements, there are FIR also. A lot of our FIRs in the beginning were not accepted by the state police stations also. So very few in the hills could register them. So the complicity of the state is, with respect to the present leadership, is self-evident. I do not need to elaborate more. It's because of this leadership and those like-minded people which he has brought under his wing that this problem started and continues till date. Now, with respect to the center, as I mentioned, they are doing the needful in terms of keeping the peace on ground with central forces there. But their inaction so far in terms of bringing a solution to our political demand and settling our issues, I do not want to make a categorical statement on that. I can understand on the one hand that such matters take time. It's not an easy situation for the government of India to deal with our political demand, even though it is within the Constitution of India. They have to look at various factors. But the fact that absolute silence with nothing happening on ground makes us suspicious. Our suspicions may not be founded to be true, but we at the receiving end, our people are internally displaced. Our people do not get state support or government support, whereas the IDPs in Imphal get state support. So the discrimination is at every level. The fact that we cannot go to the valley anymore, but we are still under the state of Manipur. The Manipur majoritarian-run state administration continues its daily activities. For example, recruitment of staff, including the scheduled tribe groups. We cannot access them. So it goes to somebody else and we are left out. Funds allocated for our areas are withheld. Humanitarian essential supplies that come through the main road from Dimapur National Highway reaches Imphal and it is stopped, including medical equipment or medicine meant for our people. So the discrimination is outright. And this has been going on since last year, 3rd May onwards. So we are not only separated physically with a buffer zone there, we are separated in terms of getting our rights, which is provided by the center. The state government dominates it. The valley people the Mera Paibis, etc., are there on the roads to prevent not only essential supplies, but even construction materials for bridge building by the center is also blocked and burnt in the valley. It is not permitted in our areas, meaning we have not only been chased out from Imphal on the 3rd of May, we continue to be alienated physically, emotionally. Of course, we've already been eliminated since 3rd of May last year. Now we are physically being alienated. We're not given any of our rights. So the state government run by the majoritarian group enjoy the legitimacy and funding resources of the state provided by the center. And what is provided to us is withheld by the valley government, and we remain in limbo. Now, we have this problem. We are part of the Indian Union. Our lands are owned not by individuals. Traditionally, and it continues, it's owned by our chieftains. So on that note, I would elaborate a little bit, and I request your patience to hear me out. In 1949, when the state of Manipur, which became a state after the British came and put the valley and the hills under one administration. Before the British came, the Meitei king had his administration in the valley called Kanglei Park, and it never reached the hills. The hills were always ruled by the chieftains. But when the British left and government of India became independent, and in 1949, like in other parts of the country, the Indian Union was formed by removing the princely states, which was over 500 of them. Manipur state, which was under one administration by the British, including us, although there was a separate hill area administration by the British, led by a political agent. In independent India, we were lumped under one administration. The system, the administrative system that the British had set up was reinforced in independent India for administrative convenience, which we did not object against at the time. But when 1949, the Indian Union was being created, Manipur, the Meitei king was called to Shillong to sign the merger agreement. The Kuki chiefs objected, saying, the British has put us under one administration. If you sign right now, we would also be part of it. And they blocked it. But the Meiteis themselves in the valley forced their king to go to Shillong and sign the merger agreement. So they became part of the Indian Union. And like in other princely states, the king of the Meiteis was compensated for the merger agreement signed by him. He was given 3 lakh per year or something. But the chieftains, the Kuki chiefs, were never compensated, which means till today we are not part of India in that technical sense. But today our political demand is put together these lands of the chiefs under the Indian Union and give us a political settlement which gives us administrative structure within the Indian Union. Because the state government has alienated us. We cannot go back there. If we go, we will be killed. We were killed while we were there. We cannot go back. We will never go back. But if we are part of India, just like you've given the Meiteis the state and they enjoy that, fine. We are left without anything since the last 2 years. When are you going to address our problems? This is our political demand. Now, if the government of India choose to keep us waiting, as one interview this morning that I saw, one of our ladies, P.P. Chongloi, she holds a talk show. She interviewed the External Affairs Secretary of the Kuki National Organization. And he reiterated this point. Our lands are owned by the Kuki chiefs. We want to put these together under one administration, under the Indian Union. And if the government chooses to keep ignoring us for a long time, the pot is boiling, it is simmering, it may boil over at some point, and which will be harmful for us and for others too, maybe. It's not a threat. The thing is, we are in a troubled times. The pot is boiling. The government is responsible for bringing a settlement that will take care of this boiling pot so that we can also live with dignity in this country. Now, so far, the center is quiet. They may be doing things, I'm sure they are a responsible government, but we know nothing. For the last 2 years, nothing has happened. We submitted our political demand for uh, self-administration, which can only translate constitutionally as either state or UT. And because we are small in size and population, we opted for UT so that the center will rule us directly. Now, we have had no response. The state alienates us. Nothing is coming to us. The center is waiting. We are suffering. So if the center delays a political settlement for us by 1 day, it means one additional day is added to our miseries. So the onus of responsibility lies with the central government. The state, forget it. They will not give us anything. We are not asking them for anything. They cannot give us anything. It is not in their purview or right to give us anything. The Meitei King's administration was never in the hills. It will never be. It was there for some time from 1949 till 3rd of May 2023. It's over. They don't want us to be a part of that. Our demand before the 3rd of May was territorial council within Manipur. They didn't want to give us that. They kicked us, they killed us, they chased us out. Now, how can we ask for anything, or how can there be a settlement within the state of Manipur? It's impossible. They have alienated us and chased us out. But then they are in the media accusing us of breaking the state of Manipur. Look at the contradiction. So here, the SITs or whoever is reporting or the Supreme Court must come down with facts so that we also exercise our right to existence in this country.
With your demand of within Indian Union being a separate union territory, so what are the main parties which agree with this demand right now?
This so far from the government side, nothing.
Not from governments. I'm asking Congress, Communist Party of India, Marxist Communist
Nobody
Party.
has expressed anything. Nobody. No party has been vocal about our issues.
Number of people who are right now internally displaced in hills, in areas. How many?
From the Kuki zone side, there must be about almost 50,000 or more.
This conflict, how can we perceive this conflict? It is a conflict between a majority non-tribal community and a tribal community, or is it a conflict between a Hindu Maithi community and a Christian Kuki community? How or is it because speech there might have been some contradictions between these two communities, but is it because BJP is in power or BJP among the Maithis? This contradiction has been manifested as a contradiction between two religious population. How do you see this? I mean, from outside we see it as people simply see it as a contradiction between two religious communities. I mean, Vaishnavite Maithis and Christian Kuki population. But what is the basic of this contradiction?
Firstly, it's not a religious conflict. It's not between Hindu or Christian or anything like that. The conflict is between two ethnic entities who live together for generations, but the root cause of the conflict is the majoritarian valley people, the Meiteis, not all of them, but the radical group view us as not a part of Manipur, which is true. We are not a part of Manipur because Manipur came into being only in 1947 when the constitution of the state was written by the people themselves, where our people were also part of the executive. There was the speaker from our side and another from the Naga side. But that doesn't mean that Manipur was there for ever and ever in the past. Our territories, the hills, have never been under the Meitei King. It's only after 1947, when we agreed to be a part of the entity called Manipur, that, the first Manipur constitution was created. But in 1949, the Meitei King merged with the Union of India, and that constitution is over. So now we are under the Constitution of India, and today we are asking for our political rights within the Constitution of India. So now the majoritarian Meitei, because of what the British created, the state of Manipur as we see it today, they believe that the entire state belongs to them. And they therefore call us foreigners, illegal immigrants, non-indigenous, narco-terrorists, what all? Why do they say all that? And my view is because they want to justify the use of state forces against us. They're using state forces against foreigners, illegal immigrants, transatlantic conspiracy, going on from these people. So historical facts remain. And therefore, why are they doing this? Because they have this ethnocentric conception of the state of Manipur created under the Union of India. And as I mentioned, the Meitei king was compensated for the valley. The hills have not been. So they cannot claim the hills as part of Manipur. Having said that, we still, till the 3rd of May 2023, we wanted territorial council within Manipur so that the hills can also be developed, which is a part of Manipur. But they begrudge us that. Rather than give us that, preceding that, there was the autonomous district councils, which were toothless under Article 371C. The majoritarian group ensured that any rights for us was not allowed to blossom. They tried to kill that. They could not. So we demanded territorial council to upgrade. Finally, they decided we have to kill them. Otherwise, the government of India is going to give them this. Because on the 3rd of May, we were nearing settlement for territorial council within Manipur. And the government of India, the chief minister was aware of this. On the day we were supposed to finalize an agreement, reach a memorandum of understanding, how come violence started? He knew about this. So he ensured that there was violence in Imphal to scupper this. And even now, whenever the central government tries to take the matter further so that the conflict is resolved and a political settlement comes, there will be incidents of violence somewhere. Even with respect to the audio tape leaks, whenever the Supreme Court raises something, there'll be violence to distract, to divert, I think. But all these are negative. Now, I like to come to the positive note. We are all human beings. They want to settle in our lands. That is only possible if there is coexistence and if they respect our rights and respect us as human beings. Now they don't. They want to annihilate us. They are indoctrinating their children today that all Kukis must be killed. So it will take 3, 4, 5, 10 generations for Meiteis to ever see us as co-human beings, fellow human beings. So now, for us, direct central rule under UT is to ensure that we are physically secure. After we're secure, we can talk politics, and someday maybe we can interact as normal human beings and peace in the sense of, real peace, not only absence of violence, but real coexistence with harmony could come. But that is not going to come now for, who knows, the next how many generations? No one can predict that. It all depends on their attitude towards us.
One more question. You have said that it is a conflict between two ethnic communities. So when BJP is in power, BJP claims it to be a nationalist party. So why BJP claims it to be a patriotic nationalist party, claims to be very much patriotic. So why is it backing up Meitei against Kuki populace? Is it because of religion?
I don't think the center is backing the Meiteis, but their inaction to settle the conflict would suggest that to some people. For us, we don't want to say that the center is biased. The fact that the central forces are there is evidence that they are not biased in terms of the physical part. Politically, our view is it takes time, but it can take time. At the same time, although the center might be, without our knowledge, doing something about settling our issues, when you have absolute silence from the 29th of February this year, when SOO was to be extended till now, then you begin to wonder, is this quietness just a matter of process where government takes time, or is it a deliberate sort of strategy to make us feel that, what can you do if we are quiet? It's almost a challenge. We will not do anything. What will you do? You are nothing. You're a small group. Some people will think of that now. And if that perception is not contained by government being proactive, sooner or later, somewhere it will blow up. Because people are under a lot of pressure, not only from the state government deliberately alienating us, but with the center taking its time, as it were. We are at the receiving end from the state because of deliberate alienation. From the center, we are under pressure because they are quiet.
So when there is such a tragedy, being quiet itself is taking a side, right? So
it can be interpreted by that, and I'm sure a lot of people do that.
Because when it has come to a stage of ethnic cleansing of annihilation, ethnic cleansing of Kuki population from the valley, now it's happening. Okay, I will come to the last question. Anyway, you have said your political demand to come to a solution, which could be a long-term demand. I mean, it may take some time. But what are the immediate demands with respect to rehabilitation of people who have internally displaced and people who are affected out of violence and receiving with the school education, everyday day-to-day life? So what are the immediate demands you want to tell?
The immediate demand is strictly humanitarian. For that, the government has established the central forces along the buffer zone. That is very important, and government is doing that very, very effectively. But we need to eat, we need to live, we need to survive. For that, the state is not allowing funds to come to us. So the center must provide an avenue for funds allocated for us to come through the district commissioners of the districts in our areas. That would be one. Number two, they should facilitate existential issues. For example, now we cannot access the airport from the hills. Even if we can, we will not, as a matter of principle. So from Lamka, people have to drive 15 to 20 hours to get to the nearest airport, which is Langkui in Aizawl. Now, government must do something. Yes, they are building the roads. That will take time. Even after the road is built, from Lamka, it'll be the longest route to the airport from Lamka to Aizawl. So why not ask the military, empower the military to create a landing site in Lamka so that small aircrafts could land there for us to be taken to Guwahati or to Dimapur or to Aizawl. These are important. Many of our people, victims of firing from the police, state police, Manipur state police-led commandos, all that victims have died because there was no time to take them to the hospital. Even if a helicopter has to be chartered to carry the patients, they have to land in Imphal. That is suicide for us. The state decides whether helicopters can land in the so-called Manipur today. So government has to find ways to facilitate our transportation also. Cost of materials coming from Aizawl to our side, the price grows exponentially. Now, we're not getting funds from this center anymore because the state prohibits. People are surviving only on their salaries or homegrown gardens. So these humanitarian aspects needs to be looked into by the center. And our day-to-day administration can be done through the district commissioner's office by funds being channeled directly to the DC and not via Imphal. So those are the two primary necessities in the immediate context. So one is the funds from the center being routed to the district commissioners secretariat, and the other is facilitate our transportation by creating one landing strip for the army where we civilians also can access with small aircrafts to go to other airports, because we will not go to Imphal. We cannot go back to Imphal for anything now, whether it is airport or medical or governance or anything. We have been completely cut off and we will not go back. Our future is only going forward. So government of India must look after our issues and expedite, the whole process of settling our demands, which is constitutional.
So thank you for spending your time amidst of your busy schedule to share your views on the ongoing conflict and the political demands of your organization too. And let's hope that the union government listen, at least now, getting out of the silence and listen to the plight of Kuki population and their demands and restore their everyday life as soon as possible. And we will also express our solidarity towards the demands of Kuki population and their rights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr.